Hey y'all, it's Katie. Welcome back to From My Vanity and welcome to another 3 Looks 1 Palette Plus review, and today we are going to be diving into the PUR Festival 2.0 palette. I got this palette in my Boxycharm and I asked you guys in that unboxing video, I was like, hey, would you guys like to see a 3 Looks 1 Palette Plus review of this? And I got an overwhelmingly positive response with a lot of comments who were like, yes, I'd love to see it, definitely do that if you have time, that sort of thing. I hope I did those transitions right. We'll see if editing Katie hates me or not. But anyway, since I got so much positive feedback, I definitely wanted to deliver on that, so I went ahead and I created 4 looks total, but 3 looks for today's video. I picked my favorite 3, and we're going to get into the nitty-gritty. But before we talk about this palette and I give you guys my overall thoughts and opinions, I'm also going to be swatching this. But before we jump in, I almost forgot, we have to do my Instagram shout out for today. And going to my most recent picture, the Instagram shout out for today is tailored_TO, or tailored2, I guess. She is my Instagram shout out for today's video. Thank you so much for commenting on my last post. I really do appreciate it, and she's a very frequent commenter both on Instagram and here on YouTube, so thank you so much. And if you would like a chance to be featured as my Instagram shout out at the beginning of one of my videos, all you have to do is be following me on Instagram and comment on my posts as I post them. So now we can jump right into the tutorial, and as I said at the end, after I show you guys the 3 looks that I created, I will be swatching this palette out on my arm and also sharing with you guys my overall thoughts, opinions, and review. Alright, as we're jumping into this, I just want to say that if you're curious, like any base products that I use or gel liners or lipsticks that I'm wearing for these looks, check in the description box. I link as much as I can remember. But anyway, I'm going in with Insta Worthy as my first shade just to warm up the crease a bit. And as you can see, I thought it warmed up very nicely. It wasn't anything too crazy. I didn't have to work too hard to get the color, and there wasn't any problem with patchiness or any kind of weirdness. It went on pretty simply. It's more of a thin formula, but as you can see, it's nicely pigmented. I had no complaints. And after I built that up a bit to get the depth and definition that I wanted, I went in with On Set, and I used that to really pack on to the outer corner and just smoke it out and just get it nice and deep, because you guys know I love a smoked out outer corner. And yeah, I also want to see how deep this brown could go. And as you're going to see, this is about as far as it can go. This one didn't impress me too much. I mean, it wasn't bad. I didn't notice anything crazy wrong with it. I didn't really notice any patchiness issues. I blended it out into the crease shade pretty easily, but when we're talking about a really deep brown, this one definitely isn't. Just doesn't have that depth and is not able to build on top of itself to get that depth. So not saying it's bad, but just something to keep in mind when we're talking about the deepest matte you can get. For those who really like those really deep smoked out outer corners like me, this is as deep as you're going to get with that brown. And then we're going to go into Vibes. And as I'm putting Vibes on, I did the other lid first, so I kind of learned you really have to kind of dig in and get a lot of product up to really get it to adhere and go onto your eyes nicely. As you can see, like when I first started pressing it on, it kind of was skipping and not really adhering. So I kind of switched up and played with a different type of brushes, and I'm going to try in a later eye look, but pretty much what I've come to realize is that these shimmers are just applied best with a finger because of the way they are. They just don't like to grab and hold onto the brushes, and if you can get them to get onto the brush and transfer onto your eye, I feel like they apply it onto your eyes very textured looking, like it's not a very smooth look to the eye look, if that makes sense. It just looks a little, I don't know, it just looks a little rough. It's not that nice. It doesn't make me think of a very glittery eye look. It just makes me think of a textured metallic shadow, if that makes sense. So definitely something to keep in mind. And then to give the eye look a little bit more definition, I am going into Pure Bliss and just putting that on the inner third of the eye and blending it into that Vibe shade. I kind of go back and forth. I tap with my finger to try to smooth it out. The brush just wasn't doing it for me. They don't want to hold onto a brush, and they don't want to apply smoothly to your eyelid. I've tried so many indie brands when it comes to metallic shadows that are just phenomenal and gorgeous on the eyes, and this metallic type of formula is definitely a bit tricky. But anyway, once I kind of got everything blended together, I take a pause to do my face, and then when I come back, we are going to finish out the lower lash line, and I'm just going into that brown and smoking my lower lash line out. I definitely noticed that the mattes didn't want to stick as nicely on my lower lash line, or not as nicely, but it took a little bit more work to get them to stick to my lower lash line, and I definitely felt like I noticed some fading. It was just all around softer on my lower lash line, which is a set base. Like I do my concealer, I set it with powder, so something to take note. I feel like putting it on set base just really made it a lot softer than I wanted it to be. And then to just blend out that brown, I'm taking Instaworthy yet again on a big fluffy brush and kind of smoking it out. And then I'm just going to finish out my look, put on some mascara and liner, and then I'm going to be doing the inner corner, which was Euphoric. I had such high expectations for this shade, but While it is beautiful, it is such a pain to get to stick to my brush. Yet again, especially since I go with very detailed brushes for my inner corner, I had to press so hard and really dig and kind of scratch and be rough to really get the shadow to get into the bristles of the brush for it to go on my eye. So very tricky. But as you can see, like once it's on the eyes, it's a very pretty inner corner highlight. But yeah, with that said, that is going to be the finished look for look number 1. I wanted something very simple yet still smoky and grungy. I really like these kind of dark, deep mauves. As I said, the outer corner couldn't go as deep as I wanted, but overall it is a very pretty look. I thought all the matte shades that I used blended very well together. Now granted, I didn't use that many matte shades and I definitely stuck to the neutral side of the palette, but overall this was a very easy and simple look and it wore very nicely. A little bit of wear down with the shimmers, but overall not bad. Okay, so moving along to look 2, I am taking Dreamland and I am putting that into my crease just to start this look out. And once again, this shade is very easy. I thought it was very nice to apply, didn't take any work. It's a very light shade, so I wasn't expecting it to be difficult, but overall very happy with this. And then once I had that down and blended it out to how I wanted it, I then went in with Turn It Up, which is a much bolder shade, and I put that right into my crease. I wanted to add depth and dimension and make this crease a very kind of loud pinky shade. And once again, I thought I got that pretty easily. I didn't have any issues building it up. But anyway, once that was down, I went into Electric and I am packing that on my outer corner. I tried to get a really dense brush to see if that would help pick it up. And I definitely feel like it helped a little bit, but once again, I was still really pushing my brush in there, being really rough to kind of move it around and pick up as much as I could with this shade and really press it onto my eyelid, not being super harsh, but a lot more firm and purposeful than I typically do when I'm doing my eyes or working with shimmers or whatnot. I don't know if you'll be able to see, but there was definitely a good bit of fallout when it came to all the shimmers in this eyeshadow palette. Now, I'm someone who always does my eyes first, so it wasn't a huge big deal, but if you're someone who does your eyes last, I feel like this palette, working with this palette or working with the shimmers specifically, and especially if you go with the darker shimmers, you're probably going to be very frustrated when it comes to the fallout because it is pretty intense. But anyway, moving on to my lid, I put down a little bit of glitter glue before I went on with the lid shade, which I took Utopia, and I packed that all over my lid on a really flat brush. And I just wanted to try different types of brushes to see which one worked easier. I feel like, I don't know, it depended on the shadow and the amount of pressure. I mean, I feel like flat brushes I just tend to prefer when I do all over my eyes. But overall, I feel like this shadow, it's definitely, Utopia is definitely a lot softer, so it picked up nicely with such a flat brush. And again, too, my lid is wet with a glitter glue, so I definitely think that helped apply this to my eyes and really get it to transfer and stick to my eyes, having that very tacky base. But as you can see, I'm really focusing on stamping and putting a lot of pressure to get that color to transfer onto my lid. I ended up going into the purple, which is Fantasy World, and I put just a teensy bit of that between that Electric, that dark blue shade, and then my pink in my crease with Turn It Up and Dreamland. I wanted just a touch of purple. I felt like that really helped to mesh the two colors together to help soften that up, and I feel like that did the trick really nicely. I was really happy with how that ended up looking. And then at this point, per usual, I stop and do my face, do my wings and all that, and then I come back to do my lower lash line, which for this look, I decided to stamp that purple right there against my lash line. And as you can see, once again, with it being a set base, I felt like it was very difficult to get the purple to show up. I was really stamping and going back and forth trying to build it up, but as you can see, or at least I feel like I can see, I can barely see any purple. It's just a very light wash of color, so I was pretty disappointed in that. So I decided to go back into Turn It Up, that really bright pink, and I just kind of buffed that all on my lower lash line because I definitely want to blow out the whole look and soften all the edges with that pink. So I decided to use the bright pink on my lower lash line. And then once that was all blended out how I liked it, I went back into that purple, the Fantasy World, and really tried to press it back in there to make it as obvious as possible that I had purple closest to my waterline. But I don't know, you tell me. I feel like it doesn't look like there's any purple there. Then for my inner corner, I am once again taking that shade Euphoric and putting that on my inner corner, as I just said. I use a tinier brush here, as you can see. I don't know if it's just because this brush isn't as good, but I definitely had a much harder time applying it to my inner corner, and I even went in and wet it to try to get it. It's just a difficult shade to pick up and get onto your eyelid. But yeah, that is going to do it for this eye look. That is all I have. I am sorry for the really bad, odd pictures that I have for you. I ended up filming another video, and at the end of it, I totally forgot to get the proper type of footage that I typically include in these 3 looks 1 palette, so I am so sorry. Overall, I like this look. I feel like the mattes are very easy to work with, but the shimmers were just a little tricky. Okay, moving on to the third and final look, I am taking Fantasy World, and I wanted to focus on a very purple look in my crease, so I went right in with the purple to see what I could get from this. And as you can see, I mean, maybe you think this is very purplish, but for me, what I see in the pan, it is a very nice purple, and then what I see as I blend it out on my eyelid kind of just comes across as pink to me. I don't know, I was just very disappointed. I really spent my time trying to build up the shade. Something to note with this shade is it's not a true matte, but at the same time, it's not any type of metallic or even a shimmer. It's one of those satiny shades, so I think that might have something to do with the sheerness of this shade. Then I'm just taking a touch of Dreamland to help blend out the purple, make sure there's no harsh lines, and just give a little bit of a nice ombre from the purple or purplish color to the pink before I then move on to my outer corner. And for this look, I'm going to be taking VIP Pass and packing that on my outer corner. And as you can see, when I first went in, I went in with a typical dense brush that I would use with a shimmer on my outer corner, but it wasn't picking up, as you can see, like a little wash of color, but no glitter, no depth, no intensity was coming off. So I switched to a really flat brush. This one is from Colored Rain, and I used that to pick it up, and I had a lot more success, but still not as intense and none of that kind of depth and glitteriness that I see in the pan. It was just kind of like a soft gray. I feel like I really had to work to build it up. And also this shade is probably the chunkiest when it comes to like glitter. It's the chunkiest out of the palette. The whole time I was working on it, it was just falling all over my cheeks really badly, especially when I get to the blending part. Oof, I feel like it was just all on my lashes, all on my cheeks. I wasn't a fan of that. So then I'm just going back into Fantasy World, that purple, and focusing it right in the crease to try to help blend out and diffuse that harsh line where the gray shimmer ends with my crease. Again, I'd already used purple, but as you can see, it just doesn't look very purplish. So I was trying to intensify the purple along with blending out the outer corner. And I mean, you can tell me if I was successful. I don't know. I feel like I spent a long time on it, and yeah, it softened out the outer corner, but it didn't give me the intensity of the purple that I was wanting. So anyway, at one point I was just like, whatever, let's move on. And I went in to turn it up, and I put that all over my lid. I went really messy with this, but as you can see, like this built up really nicely. It took like no time to get that all over my lid, but I wasn't trying to be super precise because once this shade was down, I went into Utopia, and I wanted to put this kind of like as a shimmery topper shade all over my lid. So I went in with a much fluffier brush than I typically would for a shimmer because I did want that kind of wash of color. And I started placing this on, but it was kind of placing it on chunky. Like there were areas where it was more intense and areas where it was less intense. So I wanted a little bit more precision. I like my shimmers and my eyelets to be uniform with the amount of shimmer and whatnot. So I went in with, again, a fluffy brush, but a little bit denser. And I was much happier with how that was applying to my lid. I tried to go on very lightly because I did put that pink down and I didn't want to totally cover it. But at the same time, I wanted to kind of cover it and give it a different look because I already did use Utopia. I already did use Turn It Up, so I wanted to get a different look than what I had previously done. Because I'm putting this on top of a matte, I did not use a glitter glue, and like I said, I had a lot of fallout on my face. I wiped my face off as best as I could before I went on with my face makeup, but even after I finished my makeup, I have so much glitter all over my face, it's kind of ridiculous. But anyway, from that point on, per usual, I paused and finished my face, and then I came back to finish my lower lash line. For this look, again, I'm going into that purple and putting this on the lower lash line, and kind of the same story. I mean, this purple is just kind of frustrating, at least for me. When I look at it in the pan, I'm expecting a little bit more of a purple look, and then when I use it on my eyes, I feel like it just looks more pinky than anything, and it's very soft and sheer in nature in the way it goes onto your skin. It just has a very sheer-ish look to it, if that makes sense at all. I have no idea if it does. But anyway, I put that on with a really dense brush to get as much impact as I could, and then I just went into Dreamland and went all around my eye look and kind of buffed and blended it out to make sure it was nice and soft and diffused. And then for my inner corner, I wanted to try something new because I was going back into Euphoric, so I took this little sponge tip applicator because my fingers just don't fit in there, and as you can see, this was so easy to apply, so I am holding on to this sponge tip applicator because this saved the day for this shadow. It was just, as I've been saying the whole time, it's so annoying, but being able to use the sponge tip applicator, which is very much like your finger, made this shadow so much easier to pick up, and then it went on my inner corner so easily, so quick, so beautifully. So yeah, everyone dogs on sponge tip applicators, but if you're like me and you hate having to touch the shimmers with your finger because then it just gets everywhere, you need to pick up some sponge tip applicators, and I am honestly considering picking up a bunch of them just to have them on hand because I don't like using my fingers. But yeah, that is going to do it for this third and final look. Overall, it's a very pretty look. I feel like it looks nice. I'm a little disappointed with how harsh of a line the outer corner is. I really couldn't work at blending that dark
black, gray, whatever shimmer out at all, just because it was such a harsh color. Once you placed it down, it just didn't really want to move, and trying to use these other mattes, or at least that purple, to blend it out didn't do anything, so that was a little annoying. But honestly, the lack of purpleness in this look is the thing that is kind of frustrating me the most about this look. So
So those are the 3 looks that I picked for this 3 looks 1 palette plus review. Let me know which one was your favorite. Which were you most excited for? So transitioning over, what do I think about this palette? I think it is okay. If you're someone who got this in your Boxycharm, I think it is worth pulling out and using and creating some looks with it. If you like the color story, I don't think you'll be that disappointed in the formulation. But with that said, it's definitely not my favorite to work with. The mattes in here, as you guys heard, like, they're pigmented, but they're also sheer. Like, a part of it reminded me of like the Midas formula. I feel like I'm always going to Midas when I'm talking about a very, very thin formula. But the thing I love about Midas is the formula of the powder itself can seem and feel and look very thin, but the pigmentation is always there. Whereas this, I feel like even in today's look, while it's very pretty, there is a sheerness, a softness. Like, there's not as much intensity with the color as I would like and as I would imagine I should see when I swatch some of these colors out. They're just so very vibrant, and then when I actually use them on my eyes, they're still vibrant, but there's just more of a thinness or opacity to them, I guess. Like, you know how if you edit pictures you can kind of decide on the opacity of something you're inserting, so I feel like it's just not all the way full opacity. It's a little bit down on that bar, if that makes sense. But they're not bad. They're okay. They blend all right. I definitely feel like it's a little overpriced. Like, I wouldn't pay full price for this, but since I got it in my Boxycharm, I don't mind. Moving on to the shimmers, and I feel like the shimmers is kind of where it saves it a little bit, because the shimmers are pretty, but they're not the easiest to work with. Again, a little bit of a push and pull. Like, they're nice, they're okay, but I've experienced better. When I touch them with my finger and I swatch them on my finger, most of them feel like a Give Me Glow formula, Colored Rain formula, or even Juvia's Place formula. That really soft, almost silky type of touch to them. But then there are other ones like this Euphoric. I know I've mentioned it so many times because I always use it as my inner corner highlight. It's much more of a chunky texture. Today I started using VIP Pass with a more of a standard type of lid brush that I would use to pack on a dark shimmer like this on my outer corner, and I couldn't get any pickup, so I finally had to switch to a very flat, a very flat, almost like a concealer type brush, or I could have used my fingers, but I didn't want to use my fingers. I wanted some precision. Now, I did want to address the whole, these are glitters, but they're not glitters. They're really beautiful metallic shadows. Like I said, the formula and how they look on the eyes reminds me of Give Me Glow, Colored Rain, and Juvia's Place. They're very intense, foiled with a little bit of glitter reflect, their type of shadows. So it's nothing that revolutionary, and I feel like that whole marketing tactic of calling them pressed glitters without them being glitters was just that. It was a marketing tactic, and it worked because it got me super curious. But just a heads up, if you are going to this expecting something different and unique in a formula you haven't seen, if you're in the indie world, you've seen it 100 times. And honestly, indie world does it a lot better because, like I said, they're beautiful, they're very pretty, but they're very tricky to pick up. And like I said, to some extent, they're impossible to pick up on a brush unless you use a very specific brush or you like using your fingers. But with all that said, with all those cons out of the way, it's not terrible. I feel like if there is a dud that I absolutely do not like in this palette, it's the purple, just because it isn't a matte and it isn't a shimmer. It's like those satin shades. Those satin shades just annoy me. I feel like this purple, if it actually looked like this, could have been so pretty, and I wanted to use it in my crease to get a really purple look, and I get a wash of purple in my crease, but I feel like with blending it out, it just kind of looks pinky, and I wanted this eye look to look different than my second eye look, and I feel like overall, yes, there's a little bit of difference, but I don't know, I feel like that purple ended up looking more pinkish blending it out than I had wanted it originally to look. Moving over to the wear, these shimmers definitely break down. Today I did not use it with glitter glue, and I'm definitely seeing fallout on my face, but the other days I was wearing it with glitter glue and they were fine. They still creased, and I had a little bit of wear down in my crease here on this side with these shadows, even with glitter glue. But it wasn't anything terrible. It definitely wasn't creasing. It definitely didn't fade completely away, but there was just a little bit of breakdown right here. Since I have more of a hooded eye on this side, there was definitely some wear right in there. Like, it doesn't look the same at the end of the day as it did at the beginning of the day, which, depending on your preferences, might not be bad. You might not mind that at all. Me, I'm a little bit annoyed. I like my eye looks to look as best as they can at the end of the day. I definitely don't like there to be any creasing or disappearance. A little bit of fading is okay. It's just not my preference, I guess I should say. So overall, like I said, pros and cons. For me, this kind of just falls in the middle of just being, it's okay, but it's not a total dud. And I don't know if it's just me, but it smells faintly of chocolate, which is kind of nice. I was totally cool with that. But yeah, it's just an okay palette. I was trying to think back. I did end up decluttering my other PUR palette, which I kind of kicked myself now because I would have liked to compare it. But I feel like this is a little bit better than the first one I tried, which was like an all neutral one. It was the same size and everything, 2 rows of neutral mattes and then 1 row of really intense metallics. And I feel like it's very similar, except that this, I found the blending a little bit easier, because I feel like with that palette, I had a lot of issues like of lines forming and stuff, like having difficulty blending out the matte neutral shades. So I didn't really notice that too much with this. There was a little trickiness when blending out the shimmers. Bit of an annoyance because even though I cleaned my face afterwards, I still had glitter or, you know, just whatever reflectiveness. They say it's not glitter, but something in here was reflective all over my face, and don't like glitter fallout. But anyway, I think that's gonna do it. I feel like I'm very kind of wishy-washy because I don't absolutely hate this. I don't think it's an awful palette. I don't think it's an awful formula, but I definitely don't love it. So take what you will from that, but I hope above everything this at least was informative for you guys to be able to really see up close, see all of the shadows used. I think I used them all, actually. I should double check myself. I feel like I used them all on camera. I did 4 looks. One of them you're not going to see. It was just a neutral palette, so I did use them all. I can't remember if I used them all in the tutorials though. But anyway, at least nearly all of the eyeshadows you guys got to see on camera, if not all of them. So I hope that was helpful, and then also just to hear my thoughts, hear how they were for me, that sort of thing. Yeah, like I said, I think that's going to do it for this video. I will be reviewing this in my palette palooza at the end of the month, or it kind of ends up being more the middle of the month. So like mid-August, I'll be doing a palette palooza, and I'll definitely mention this again and give you guys any kind of updates if I do another look. And you'll also be able to see how this ranks with all the other palettes. Like I said, I'm very, you know, wishy-washy. It's not bad, but it's not great kind of thing. But I'm trying a lot of great palettes, so you never know where this is going to land when I review them, and I always review in a ranking them from worst to best of the month. So that's always fun. So if you want to stay tuned for that, subscribe, and like I said, sometime mid-August I'll have that video up. But yeah, I think that's going to do it for this video. Thank you so very much for watching. As always, if you enjoyed this video, if you found it helpful, please hit the thumbs up button, as it helps me in the whole YouTube algorithm. And if you want to get daily content from me, I am over on Instagram, LadyKatie92. As I said, I post about every day, and you can have a chance to be my Instagram shout out at the beginning of my videos. But yeah, with all that said, I will see you very soon in my next video. Bye guys.